But I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. I mean, that doesn't mean that industries stay good forever or businesses stay good forever, but learning to think about business models. What I learned at 20 is useful to me now. What I learned at 25 is useful to me now. And so it's not a field that changes dramatically in terms of the underlying principles. It's like physics. I mean, there's underlying principles. Now they're doing all kinds of things with physics they weren't doing 50 years ago. But if you know if you got the principles, if you know what makes a good business, if you know what makes a good manager, if you know what makes a good product, and you learn that in one business, there is some transference to other businesses as you go along, and you learn what things you're not going to understand. I mean, knowing what to leave out is just as important as knowing what to focus on. And I don't think I can win every game. Somebody said, "How do you beat Bobby Fischer?" You play him any game except chess. So I don't play Bobby Fischer chess. And there's a lot of value to learning that over time, and learning what you're good at and what you're not good at.
How do you determine, what you think is a fair price to pay for the business?
It's a tough thing to decide, but I don't want to buy into any business I'm not terribly sure of. So if I'm terribly sure of it, it probably isn't going to offer incredible returns. I mean, why should something that is essentially a cinch to do well offer you 40% a year or something like that? So we don't have huge returns in mind, but we do have in mind never losing anything. And I mean, we bought See's Candy in 1972. See's Candy was then selling 16 million pounds of candy at $1.95 a pound, and it was making 2 bits a pound or $4 million pre-tax. We paid $25 million for it. Took no capital to speak of. When we looked at that business, basically my partner Charlie and I really decided whether there was a little untapped pricing power there. In other words, whether that $1.95 box of candy could just as easily sell for $2 or $2.25. If it could sell for $2.25, another 30 cents a pound was $4.8 million on 16 million pounds, which on a 25 million purchase price was fine. We didn't do any, we've never hired a consultant in our lives. Our idea of consulting is go out and buy a box of candy, and eat it. But what we did know was that they had share of mind in California. I mean, there was something special. Every person in California had something in their mind about See's Candy, and overwhelmingly was favorable. They had taken a box, Valentine's Day and given it to some girl, and she'd kissed him. If she'd slapped him, we'd have no business. But as long as she kisses him, that's what we want in their mind. See's Candy getting kissed. And if we can get that in the minds of people, we can raise prices. And I bought that I bought it in 1972. Every year I raise the price on December 26th. I raise it the day after Christmas so that everybody, because we sell a lot at Christmas. In fact, we'll make $60 million this year. We'll sell 30 million pounds, make $2 a pound. Same business, same formulas, same everything. 60 million bucks still doesn't take any capital. And we'll make more money 10 years from now. But of that 60 million, we make about 55 million in the 3 weeks before Christmas. And our company song is "What a Friend We Have in Jesus." I mean, it is, it is a good business.
So I urge everybody, when I talk to them in high school about this and colleges, just develop the habits. You've got the brain power, you've got the energy, but develop the habits of success and look around you at the people that you admire, and list what makes you admire them compared to somebody else that looks equally strong or equally talented. And those are things that you can do. I mean, just write them down. And people like people that they like them if they're humorous, if they're friendly, if they give credit to the other fellow. I mean, and they don't like them if they're stingy, or they overstate and overpromise and all those sort of things. Well, that's a decision you make. So I encourage everybody to build your own moat around yourself.
I urge you to work in jobs you love. I mean, I think you're out of your mind if you keep taking jobs that you don't like because you think it'll look good on your resume. I was with a fellow at Harvard the other day who was taking me over to talk, and he was 28, and he was telling me what he'd done in life, which was terrific. And then I said, "What are you going to do next?" And he said, after I get out my MBA, he says, "I think maybe I ought to go to work for a management consulting firm because it'll look good on my resume." And I said, "Wait a second, you've been 28, you've been doing all these things. I mean, you've got a resume that's 10 times as good as anybody I've ever seen it already." I said, "If you take another job you don't like, I said, isn't that a little like saving up sex for your old age? There comes a time when you ought to just start doing what, So I think I got the point across to him. But you ought to take a job. When you get out here, take a job you love. Don't take a job that you think is going to look good on your resume. Take a job you love. You may change it later on, but you'll jump out of bed in the morning. I mean, when I got out of Columbia, the first thing I tried to go to work for Graham immediately. I offered to go to work for him for nothing. He said I was overpriced. But I kept pestering him. I went out to Omaha and I sold securities for 3 years, and I kept writing him and giving him ideas and doing all these things. Finally, I went to work for him for a couple of years, and it was a great experience. But I always really worked in a job. I worked in a job that I loved doing. And you should really take a job that if you were independently wealthy, you would take. That's the job to take, because that's the one that you're going to have great fun in. You'll learn something. You'll be excited about it, and you can't miss. You may go do something else later on, but you'll get way more out of it. And I don't care what the starting salary is or anything of the sort. I don't know how I got off on that, but there I am. So I do think that if you think you're going to be a lot happier if you've got 2x instead of x, you're probably making a mistake. I mean, you ought to find something you like that works with that, and you'll get in trouble if you think that making 10x or 20x is the answer to everything in life, because then you will do things like borrow money when you shouldn't, or maybe cut corners on things that your employer wants you to cut corners on. Or it just doesn't make any sense. You won't like it when you look back on it.
Well, there's a lot of luck. I mean, just being born in the United States in 1930, the odds were like 30-1 against me. I mean, I didn't have anything to do with picking the United States as I emerged, and having decent genes for certain things. And in my own case, I was sort of wired for capital allocation, and being wired for capital allocation a couple of hundred years ago in Nebraska wouldn't have been a thing. And even now, being born in various parts of the world, it wouldn't have meant much. But here I was in this soon-to-be very rich capitalistic system, and it just so happened that what I did paid off enormously in a market system like we have. And if I'd had a talent in some other area that was way less commercial, I mean, I would have had a good time doing it, but it wouldn't have paid off like this. But of course, Jay said it perfectly when he talked about, he's in there recording for himself, and the money comes afterwards. I mean, I got to do what I love. I mean, and it doesn't get any luckier than that. If you can spend your lifetime, and I'm 80 now, and doing things you love every single day. I mean, I would be doing what I do now, and I would have done it in the past, if the payoff had been in seashells or shark's teeth or anything else. If you can go to work every morning, I tap dance to work, and I come down, and every day's exciting. So that is lucky. I mean, that didn't have to happen that way. If I'd been born in 1930, if I'd been born a female, if I'd been born black, I would not have had the same opportunities that I had. I mean, it's chance. I mean, my parents loved my sisters just as much as they loved me. My sisters are just as smart or smarter than I am and all of that, but they didn't have the same expectations in the 30s for a young smart girl as they had for a young smart guy. And so I've had all kinds of luck. I had the luck of, I got turned down by Harvard. Well, getting turned down by Harvard meant I got to study under Ben Graham at Columbia, which changed my life. All kinds of things have worked out. So I just hope I stay lucky. I've been lucky for 80 years.
And it was the first way I went at stocks, to buy stocks selling way below working capital. Very cheap quantitative stocks. I call it the cigar butt approach to investing, is that you walk down the street and you look around for a cigar butt someplace, and you see one, and it's soggy and kind of repulsive, but there's one puff left in it. So you pick it up, and the puff is free. I mean, it's a cigar butt stock. I mean, you get one free puff out of it, and then you throw it away, and you walk down the street and try and find another one. I mean, it's not elegant, but it works. If you're looking for a free puff, it works. Those are low return businesses. But time is the friend of the wonderful business. It's the enemy of the lousy business. If you're in a lousy business for a long time, you're going to get a lousy result, even if you buy it cheap. If you're in a wonderful business for a long time, even if you pay a little too much going in, you're going to get a wonderful result if you stay in a long time.
What I've done has not been very complicated, or I've followed somebody else's teachings. But what I really hope, if you could pick one word, it would be teacher. I mean, I got enormous amount. I mean, Jay has talked about his 6th grade teacher. I think almost anyone that's been successful has had a teacher, maybe not a formal teacher. I mean, it can be a parent, obviously, but somebody's had a teacher that's affected them, and if you can pass that along, I think that's better than money, actually.